And I'm going to be talking about motivational interviewing. I'm going to be discussing what motivational interviewing is, the different tools and strategies that can be put in place to make up motivational interviewing, and how it can be applied. We'll be looking at the perspective from a facilitator who has a client who's potentially been leading quite a sedentary lifestyle, looking to muster up some motivation and make change in order to create a more active and healthier way of life. So, motivational interviewing is a brief form of psychotherapy. It's an intervention where a client can sit down with a facilitator, and with this very person and client-centered approach, it allows a facilitator to guide the client along the stepping stones to help implement change for long-term benefits. At the very heart of motivational interviewing is the spirit of motivational interviewing. And there are three key elements that can make the difference as to whether a client is truly going to implement change and implement change long term as well. We've got collaborative partnership, evoking change, and autonomy. With this collaborative partnership, it just indicates that we want to make sure we're working together and the client is really aware of that. So we collaborate with our thoughts, ideas, and our discussions to bring about change together. Often motivations that people have can be quite general or quite on the surface. There's not a lot of time that has been allowed to really think about their true motives. And it is the facilitator's job to try and really connect with people's true motives, and therefore, it will actually help implement change more long term. For example, people might be saying, oh, well, the doctor told me I should just be exercising more, or I'm spending a bit too much time on the couch. They're feeling a little bit guilty. But is that enough to implement change? So consider things like if they have children, thinking about them running around with the kids and being able to do that for a longer period of time and feel good about it as well. Being able to socialize a little bit more with their friends that might be part of a running club or something like that. Really trying to connect with true motives will help implement change and hopefully implement change long term as well. At the end of the day, it is up to the client to make their own decisions and to get up off that couch and start exercising. We can't be with them every step of the way. They can't rely on other people to do that 100% of the time. So it is up to them. Creating a sense of autonomy and ownership with their decisions will ensure they are more invested, they will be more motivated, and therefore in the long run that change will be made, and it will be made long term. So it's very important to not put these decisions and these rules and throw this information at clients. It's really important that you help guide them on those stepping stones to help make that decision for themselves. So as part of motivational interviewing, there are 4 guiding principles that can be implemented using the acronym RULE. Now, the first one is resisting the writing reflex. Now, this can be a very tricky one to implement, especially if you're very enthusiastic as a practitioner and you're excited to share all of your knowledge, and you can also see the potential in your client as well. Unfortunately, even though that may come from a really good and positive place, that might come with some resistance. The client might either start to feel really, really overwhelmed by all of the information, and also as well as a secondary perspective, they might start to build up a bit of a brick wall and push away and start to get a bit defensive, which will demotivate them and push them away from what potentially could have been a really great start to making change. Now, the second one is understanding client motivation. Now, this goes back to the spirit of motivational interviewing, where we're evoking change. So really listening to the client, really considering their life situation, everything they have going on, how they're talking, what they're talking about, what they're wanting to change. It will make all the difference in how successful you are in helping guide them to implement change as well. The next one is listen with empathy. So we want to make sure, just like we were saying before, we're listening to the client as much as we can, but also we don't want to just listen and take notes and look at it from our own perspective. We need to make sure we're looking at it from their perspective with a more open mind. Now, lastly, we want to make sure we are empowering the client. We want to make sure they feel good. We've built up their confidence and we've given them the tools to feel confident, to move forward beyond this interview and take those stepping stones to making change. At the end of the day, they're the only ones that can do this. So providing them with all of the tools to be successful is the key to this interview. When conducting interviews with clients, it can be really easy to fall into the trap of asking questions that only require one-word answers. For example, have you ever been a member of a gym before? This is time efficient and straight to the point. However, it provides a few limitations. One, the facilitator or the therapist doesn't then get to know the client. Often with open-ended questions, they can elaborate and you can get to know them a little bit more. Most importantly, you haven't given the client the chance to actually think about and process what's been asked before they answer it as well. And often, as we were discussing before, a client listening to what they're actually saying and what they've maybe been thinking for a very long time but have never voiced can be quite empowering and can make quite a change and create a shift in them as well. Next, we have affirmations. Now, this is an opportunity for the facilitator, the therapist, to actually build a stronger platform of support and understanding and also get to know their client a little bit more as well. They can compliment the client, engage more in conversation by also showing another level of appreciation, which can be really beneficial to helping them in their progression. Next, we have reflections. Now, this can provide an opportunity for both the client and also the facilitator. For the therapist, it can mean they can demonstrate that they really have been listening, that they've been truly engaged and are invested in their client making change long term as well. For the client, it allows them an opportunity to reflect on everything that has been said, everything that has been discussed, any ideas that have come up, and also they can reflect on the journey that they've made up until now and also how they're going to progress from then on. When it comes to summarising, this can be a really powerful and empowering part of the interview for both the facilitator and the client. For the facilitator, it allows them to summarise everything that has been discussed so far. It provides an opportunity to check in and see how the client is feeling. They can then demonstrate that they really have been listening, they've taken everything on board, and that they really do have their interests at heart. Growing out of the theoretical model of behaviour, motivational interviewing can really help to overcome those obstacles where a client has generated that conflict within themselves, that ambivalence where they're tossing up between the pros and cons and the should I and shouldn't I. Helping to define their readiness to change and strengthening that motivational interviewing can be extremely beneficial in that way. Also, something to consider is the self-determination theory, where we're considering autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Now, motivational interviewing really does tick all of those boxes where we're providing the client a strong platform to make their own decisions. We're providing a strong platform where we're encouraging them and building up their confidence so they feel more confident in what they're doing. And then overall, we're helping them to connect, hopefully long-term, more so with their families, with their children, with their friends, so they're becoming more social, more outgoing, and building up and increasing that relatedness. So overall, motivational interviewing can be extremely beneficial for those who partake in it. Yes, it does have its disadvantages. It can be expensive. It can be tricky to master the skills of motivational interviewing, especially as it will have to adapt accordingly depending on the client with quite a personable approach. And also it can be quite time consuming as well. But overall, the benefits are showing through studies. At the end of the day, to be successful, we need to be confident. And to be confident, we need to be prepared. And to be prepared, we need the tools. And this is where motivational interviewing kicks in. And it can give us the tools, it can give the client the tools to be ready to make that change so they can prepare themselves, they can build their confidence and then succeed in their journeys.